Hello, everybody. So today I want to talk about HIMSS again. This is kind of an unplanned video, but I had a comment on one of my videos asking me, what differentiates HIMSS from Roman or Keeps, and I think a lot of people see way too small for this company. They look at this company and they say, oh, this is just an ED drug company and I don't want to invest in that. And I certainly was guilty of doing that well over a year ago when I was not even looking at this company, when I was dismissing it just based on this idea or this reputation that's all that this company is. When you dig into this company, you realize that they have a much grander vision of what healthcare should be and where healthcare is headed. And they're trying to build next generation healthcare. Quickly also, when people ask me, is there a moat, is there a moat, is there a moat? I think this is the wrong lens to assess any company in healthcare. Because yes, healthcare historically has worked with a moat, except moats are not the only way to doing business. And when you are trying to grow as fast as a company is growing as HIMSS, you're not trying to build a moat. You're trying to build a very large customer base, and then your customer base gives you inertia, right? Once someone is subscribed and they stay subscribed for 5-10 years, you have inertia to keep reinvesting in the business. Moats are only helpful when you're the leader and you're trying to defend your business, right? Others better hope that they have a moat. But for a company like HIMSS, who is challenging all of the incumbents in the industry, I do not like that question about the moat. Moat is Warren Buffett style investing. I protect the old, and my style of investing is not moat investing. I don't protect the old, I invest in disruption. So let's understand HIMSS, and the best way, I've begun about a few months ago, I've begun describing HIMSS with a formula, with basic math, and like just a formula. So let's get a few things straight, and then I'll walk through kind of my formula to explain HIMSS to you. So HIMSS is better healthcare. And the reason why I say better healthcare is because really most people think of healthcare as the thing that we have. But the thing that we have in the US and the West is not healthcare. In my view, we have Sickcare. Right now, we have Sickcare. And HIMSS does not equal Sickcare. So if you call the current care system in the US Sickcare, then you would call HIMSS healthcare. If you call the current healthcare system in the US healthcare, then you would call HIMSS better healthcare. HIMSS is something entirely different, and I can define HIMSS through this little formula right here, which is HIMSS equals eDoctor plus ePharmacy, all together, all in one, minus insurance plus complexity, and insurance equals complexity, always. So you remove that. You remove insurance and complexity to build a new system where the doctor and the pharmacy are both one and where they are digital. Let me walk you through really quickly through this formula, which is the best way that I define HIMSS for me. So let's begin by the end of the formula. Insurance as complexity. So HIMSS works on complexity. It eliminates all of this, and by eliminating the complexity, it of course greatly reduces the cost and eventually eliminates the cost for insurance. That is my thesis for this talk. So HIMSS is one single app, and in one single app, most of your remote health needs will be covered. And if you look at the roadmap of HIMSS, they want to add all of these different health issues. To understand why an app is so necessary, we have to understand, and this is HIMSS numbers, the HIMSS data, 70 to 80% of all of health issues can be diagnosed and treated remotely. So right off the bat, our current healthcare system, 70 or 80% of it is not needed because you can do it through an app. Period. That's the description. Through an app. You can all do it through an app. And sure enough, in 2020, we found out that there were a lot of things that we could do through an app. And just because the return to the doctor's office trend is very similar to the return to the office trend that we're seeing right now, because health systems have sunk costs. They have all these sunk costs in these facilities, but of course they want the old system to come back. But HIMSS doesn't have this sunk cost. HIMSS is a 6-year-old company. It's a new company. It's going ahead with disruption. It doesn't have 30-year bonds that it contracted in 2019 that it has to pay for, right? So it doesn't have any of that. It's a new thing. It starts from scratch. It's new. And HIMS is a single app that removes the complexity of the current system. So let's say you have a minor issue today. And of course, I'm gonna use ED because it's the one most used by people talking about HIMS online. But HIMS does plenty of other things than ED, namely heart health. We're getting into heart health. That's a big deal. But let's use ED as an example, and you'll see they're related. So let's say you have a problem with ED. So what do you have to do? Right? So first of all, your insurance is going to require you to go for a primary doctor. It's very rare today to find an insurance who doesn't require that. So you're going to need to have a primary doctor. You probably don't need one. You probably don't have any health issues besides that ED. So to even begin, you may not even get it treated because you don't want to go through the step of first finding a primary doctor or a family doctor, as they call them. If you live in a big city, you're going to have to wait 4 to 6 months. You live in a smaller city, you might be luckier. Then, once you see that primary doctor, you have to see a specialist. The specialist for ED is a urologist. So the doctor will refer you to a specialist. Then you have to wait another 2 to 3 months. Then you have to get a prescription. You've paid a copay, you got your prescription. Once you got your prescription, you got to figure out where you want to send this prescription to. But you don't know anything about the pharmacy business. You don't know how pharmacies work. You've never been into a pharmacy before. You're 30 or 35. You don't know that. So then you go to the pharmacy. You figure out which pharmacy you want. You figure out how to pay. You get your drug. Oftentimes, you may not even get the drug that you want because your insurance says that you should get the generic for the drug or says that you should get something else, or the pharmacy doesn't have what you want, and thus they give you something that's similar, that's a generic. It's a whole mess. And then you get your drug and you're happy and you get treated for 6 months, 4 months. And what happens in 4 months or 6 months? Well, it's magic. The prescription expires. And when the prescription expires, you call your doctor and you say, hey, I need my prescription again. And the doctor says, I want to see you again. I want to see you again. That's what the doctor says. That's the current system for minor health issues, right? It works if you have a very complex health problem. This is the right system. For most systems, for most issues, most health issues that are not very complex, this is not the right system in my view. Let's talk about HIMS. How does HIMS do it? HIMS eliminates all of this. HIMS eliminates all of this for many of the simple issues that people get in their 30s or 40s. HIMS eliminates all of this. What do? HIMS, you download an app. It's the top 10 app. It's a top 10 health app on iPhone. You download the app. You get matched with a specialist within 48 hours. Most often, quicker than that. You see the specialist. If the specialist says you don't need anything, you don't pay anything. If the specialist says you need something, then HIMS will offer you the medication that was offered by the specialist. Then you subscribe to your medication. Your cost of that subscription pays for that visit. Okay? And then, as long as you're subscribed for a subscription, you have the follow-ups. You have free follow-ups with a nurse practitioner or the doctor that prescribed you the drug. You have the follow-up as long as you're a subscriber. So that's the HIMS way. That's in my view a much more powerful way to do it, and people are actually going to get treated. That's why I believe HIMS is having a lot of induced demand. It's not even taking business away from this system oftentimes. It's just new people coming to healthcare for the first time, not going through this old legacy way of doing business. Now, what about the insurance? Well, HIMS attacks the cash cow of the healthcare industry, and they attack it in quite a direct way, because look at how much money is made by the current system. So you find an approved doctor by insurance. You pay a copay, the doctor gets insurance money, which you pay yourself for your insurance, right? Your employer pays for it, you pay for it. Then you find an approved specialist, most of the time another copay. Then you find an approved pharmacy. Most of the time you're going to have a copay for your drug. When you pick up your drug, right, you have to pay a little bit with your credit card, right? Then doctor wants to see you again. Boom, another $180. Well, actually, it's most likely a copay again, right? And the bonus of a traditional insurance process oftentimes is sometimes you go to the doctor and then you go to the specialist, and then you find out either at the specialist stage or at the pharmacy stage that what you need is not covered by insurance. And you're definitely not getting any copay back, right? Because your insurance has not covered it. So you went through all of the process to find out that your issue is not covered, and you paid to find out that your issue is not covered. Well, if you had just all-in-one system, the doctor and the pharmacy together, you wouldn't have to pay. You would just find out right away your issue is not covered, and then you make the decision. So how does HIMS solve that? Well, HIMS is like a Netflix subscription. HIMS is the same way people are already used to shop. You know, monthly payment, monthly subscription, Right? You pay for Netflix, you pay for a video game, you pay for a hair loss treatment. So it's the way people are already used to paying. It's very easy to understand, very transparent pricing, right? How often in the traditional legacy system do you go to the doctor, you go to the pharmacy, or you go to the hospital, and you pay something, and then you find out 3 weeks, 6 weeks later that, oh, there's $12 that are missing that you need to pay, or $40 or some random amount, because the system is so, convoluted that even the secretary doesn't know how much you should pay, and so you get a bill back in the mail, 3 months, 3 weeks later saying, oh, there's something missing. Anyways, you don't have that with the HIMSS way. It's a subscription. You just pay a subscription. It's likely much cheaper than all of these copays, likely way cheaper than all of these copays. And it avoids, and I think this is very important, it avoids this kind of cultural view, and you see it especially in pre-internet folks, especially, I would argue among the baby boomers. I've heard this multiple times. Oh, if it's not covered by insurance, it's not a real need. If your insurance doesn't cover it, then they don't think it's a real need. Well, that's not entirely true. And we're seeing today there's a lot of health expenses that are a real need that are not covered by insurance. And if something is not covered by insurance, does it mean that you shouldn't take it because it's not a real need? Who's to say that it's a real need? Well, I'll tell you one thing. If you have a health issue, you want to get treated, the only person who should say if it's a real need or not is you. Is not the insurance. It is you. You're the only person who can say if the treatment you get is a real need or not. And it's a philosophical question, but it's a major problem to mediate because we all pay for our healthcare, right? I mean, even if you live in Europe, I know this is a US company, but even if you live in Europe, right, you pay for your healthcare. In France, it's 19% of all income that goes towards paying for healthcare. In the US, your employer, that has taken off your paycheck, it's you would get that money if it were not for the health insurance. Your insurance is what at your employer, right? It's between $600 and $800 a month that you pay. So you're paying for this. So you're paying this money for the health insurance system, and then the health insurance system gets back to you and tells you, well, yeah, you can spend your money. Oh, no, you can't spend your money on this, even though you decide that you may need it. You can't spend it on this for you. Right? So in this new system, and I think this is a social cultural trend, this is a change of we need to accept the fact that there are some insurance payments that we're paying for ourselves and we're deciding for ourselves, right? Or in another way, Sickcare insurance, which is the way it should be called. We should look at health, in my view, that's just my view, but health should be our own expense. We should pay for our health, and then we should also have Sickcare insurance. But it should be called Sickcare insurance and not healthcare insurance. You always pay for your health out of pocket, and then you have Sickcare insurance for the one time you break your leg. That's Sickcare insurance versus healthcare insurance. That's I think, the way we're going to be headed. Except they need to rename healthcare insurance Sickcare insurance. It's different. It's very different, in my view. So that was it for the insurance complexity system. And I think we're moving into a trend where people don't mind paying for their own insurance, and they realize that the treatments that they need are not covered by insurance anyways, because insurance, those poor insurance companies with those bonds losing 80% of their value. I mean, if you have insurance, anything, the costs have gone up like crazy of insurance. That has to do with their investments. Anyways, different topic. But this is just one section. There's another story to this. There's another story to which than just the elimination of complexity and the elimination of insurance, or really the recategorization of insurance as Sickcare insurance and not healthcare insurance. The other part of this is the digital part, and this is where I think it requires more first principles thinking to think about this. So, and by the way, some of it may apply to Teladoc as well. I know there's a lot of tribalism between HIMSS and Teladocs. I'm obviously a HIMSS guy, but I used to be into Teladocs, and then I realized that the reason why Teladoc, in my view, cannot make it is because of that insurance of complexity. Teladoc cannot grow like HIMSS because they are dealing with insurance and complexity, right? Teladoc is insurance. And because you're dealing with that, you're not going to grow as fast. You're not going to be as agile as being entirely out of that. So anyways, let's go through some first principles thinking. So 70 to 80% of conditions are treated with pharmaceuticals and drugs alone. And because of that, does it really make sense to separate the doctor from the pharmacy? Shouldn't the doctor and the pharmacy be one? And I think they should. I think this is an artifact of history, of the way we build the health system, that we have both of them be separate. I think the doctor and the pharmacy should be one. Why do you have to go to a separate company to get treatment from the person that diagnosed you for the treatment? So in the current system, we have one person that diagnoses you for the treatment and another person that gives you the treatment. It doesn't make any sense, right? When you go to get your car fixed, you go to a mechanic. Do you go to like a diagnosis specialist and they look at your car and they say, oh yeah, you need an oil change. Oh, but I don't do oil change here. You need to go across town and have an appointment to the oil change specialist. Right? That makes sense. No, of course the person that does the diagnosis also does the treatment. And since the treatment is almost always pharmaceuticals, then it should be the same person. The doctors and the pharmacies should be aligned. So that's first principle thinking, and that's what I think HIMSS really nailed it on this one. The doctor and the pharmacy should be one. And of course, and this is related to insurance and complexity, what's the big advantage of having them both be one is that you don't have to pay for two giant bureaucracies. You're just paying for one, hopefully not a bureaucracy. You're paying for one lean machine that is an app, hopefully. But you don't have to pay for two giant bureaucracies. And we're seeing this with the pharmacies in the US struggling, with Walgreens struggling in the US. We're really seeing this. So one is enough. One system is enough, not necessarily two. You know, and I'll cover the idea of the pharmacist is here for advice. I'll cover that idea right now. So that's the first principles thinking. Second one here is, do we need 45,000 pharmacies in the era of same-day free shipping and large automated warehouses? HIMSS has 2 large automated warehouses, one in Columbus, one in Phoenix. Do we need 45,000 small pharmacies who may or may not have your drug when you can have same-day free shipping and 3 large automated warehouses? And the answer to that, in my view, is no. So first of all, one of the main reasons for pharmacists and for pharmacies is advice. Pharmacists are here to give you advice on posology, on how to take the product, etc., etc. That's kind of a main job. I would argue that pharmacists are so strained in their standard physical pharmacy that they don't have time to give advice. And it would be much easier for them to do this job through an app, or to do this through an app and give advice through the app. Much more straightforward. That's point number 1. My point number 2 about pharmacies, and this applies to doctors, by the way, is healthcare, and I'll get into privacy in a second too. Privacy is very important in healthcare. Very, very important. There's a bunch of reasons for why it's so important to have privacy. One of the reasons for privacy is to avoid discrimination, and it's a very, very, very long story of people. When you have a disease, you've had society do things that are less than ethical. So it's a long story as to why we want to keep things like ailments and diseases private. It's very important. And so, keeping in the spirit of keeping whatever health issue you have private, I ask you this. So in the US, most pharmacies are drive-through, right? Is yelling out your prescription out of the window like you would do at McDonald's to get a burger? You yell out, "I'm here to pick up a prescription. What's the name?" And you yell your name. And whoever's in line behind you at the drive-through hears your name. That's how it works. You've probably done it, right? You yell your name. "Oh yeah, my name is this." "Oh, okay, here's your pharmacy." Or even if you wait in line, what were you looking for? "Oh, you were looking for this drug." How is this privacy enhancing? This is not privacy enhancing. This will never have the privacy of an app. An app is much more private. This will never have the privacy of an app. So that's why I think pharmacies need to move digital. Here's another first principle thinking, and this is about the doctors this time. Do we need giant medical office buildings, which is an industry of its own? Look it up. There's entire REITs who make a bunch of money building hospitals, and there's entire health system who have a asset management business on the side. This is a little bit like other fields like academia, where you're really a real estate empire operating a side healthcare business, right? I mean, oftentimes we'll see medical systems are like this. You're really a you're really a real estate empire who happens to also operate a medical business on the side. So, do we really need all of these medical office buildings when 70 to 80% of all of the treatments is just prescribing a drug? Do we need to pay for all of this? The answer to me is obviously no. Right? Do we need, another first principle, this is related to that, do we need to wait 3 to 6 months for a doctor, drive across town to find one in your local town, when an app can match you to a doctor anywhere in the USA? You can be matched anywhere to a doctor to the USA. There used to be another system like this, which was called taxis. I don't know if you've heard of taxis. It used to be that if you wanted to go somewhere with a taxi before the phone, you had to go around town and you had to look for a yellow car, and then you had to make your sign, say, hey, yellow car, come pick me up. That used to be taxis until it became an app and a matching algorithm, right? The same is true at the scale of the USA. You can be matched with a doctor anywhere, right? A doctor in your town may not be available, but guess what? A doctor may be available 2,000 miles away, and the system matches you. So this is the platform segment of HIMSS, and this is why I think this is very powerful. You can be matched to a health professional without having to necessarily be in the same town and available at the same times, right? So traditional healthcare, pharmacy networks, and insurance companies are extremely bloated bureaucracies that we're paying for. They're bloated because they're old. Many of them are more than 100 years old. What happens to companies when they get very old is they get bloated. You have layers of management. You end up with system with, say, 15 layers of bosses. And if you want to talk to the big boss, to the CEO, you have to go through 15 different bosses. And there's it's bloated bureaucracies that you're paying for, which is why HIMSS is solving that, in my view, by entirely operating out of this system. And these bloated bureaucracies are seeing disruption for the first time. And we'll see how they handle it. Right? Linear TV did not handle very well the Netflix subscription. Right? Blockbuster did not handle very well Netflix. I could go on. Traditional auto company, not handling dealerships, not handling very well Tesla. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. And I may be wrong, and this stock goes to zero, and that's okay, because I only invest in disruptors. But the value proposition of HIMSS is stunning to me. So yes, healthcare is much cheaper when you do everything through an app. People are finding out that they don't need to pay a fortune for healthcare; they can just use HIMSS. And Sickcare, trauma care, that's a different business entirely. And Sickcare and trauma care, in my view, is a business that we need to stop calling healthcare so that people stop being confused. Sickcare and healthcare are different things. The current infrastructure works for a broken leg. It works for a hip replacement, but it does not work for health. It leaves folks with minor, non-urgent issues behind, right? And this is where I think this is so important. HIMSS fills its own corner in the landscape of health, and that's the corner that I call healthcare, because issues, for example, that are traditionally not treated, say, by insurance include issues such as ED, right? So ED, for example, would not be treated by most insurance, except if you don't get treated for ED, if you don't get things like your weight or your blood in order, right? ED stems with your arteries getting clogged. That's why people get EDs, because their arteries get clogged. If you don't get that treated in your 30s, well, guess what? In your 70s, you're going to have heart disease. And if you have heart disease in your 70s, well, then what does that mean? You have to use the current infrastructure system of Sickcare. So it's as though because we don't have healthcare, we have thriving Sickcare. We have a thriving Sickcare because we don't have healthcare. That's why I think HIMSS is a powerful company, because if you look at the new product of HIMSS, if you look at their latest product, which is ED and heart health together, They just released a drug of ED plus heart health together. If you look at their new product, you realize that you may never get to the stage of atherosclerosis if you got taken care of ED in your 30s because you got the HIMSS pill, and the HIMSS just happened to treat you for the early signs of heart disease. So if you get treated for your early signs of heart disease in your 30s, you're not going to get atherosclerosis in your 70s and have to go get a stent or get issues like this that would really require the Sickcare system. So in other words, if we actually got healthcare right, and if what others call preventative healthcare, what I'm just going to call healthcare, if we were to do healthcare right, like HIMSS is offering, then you wouldn't need as big of a Sickcare system. You wouldn't. You just wouldn't need as big of a Sickcare system. And I think this is where this is so powerful. Many folks would not get treated for minor health issues because of the complexity. Oh, I'm not going to go to the doctor just for this little thing. I'm not going to spend so much time trying to figure it out for a little issue. And this is also especially true for men. There's a lot of women tend to be better with healthcare, but for men, it's true that sometimes we don't want to go through the whole process because it's all annoying, right? It's a complete mess. But HIMSS, of course, has hers and has the hers function, and they're moving into the hers segment and the women's segment. And women have similar issues with, having to call back to the doctor, having to go back to the doctor, having to pay again and again and again, right? There's a lot of similar issues for women in their 30s. Like that, and women have similar issues than us. Of just so you have a little tiny problem in your 30s, you just let it go. You just let it go because you don't want to go through the process, and life is hectic. HIMSS solves that. HIMSS makes health and makes getting treated convenient, and it makes it cheaper than insurance because you're eliminating all of that complexity. You're eliminating all of those copays that you have to pay, and you get a generic drug too. So the last point that I want to make, and every time I talk about HIMSS, it ends up being a longer video, is E. E is for electronic, of course. And why does E matter? Well, I'll tell you. Gen Z and millennials, they don't want to deal with a healthcare system where they have to call where they have to deal with a healthcare office just like they deal with the landscaper, or just like they deal with the roofing contractor, right? It's all on the phone. You gotta go on the phone. Why is healthcare still 100% on the phone? You gotta call. Have you ever looked at directories from your health insurance to see specialists in your area? I mean, it's insane. You gotta call. You have to call on the phone, and you have to call around. Yeah, Dr. XYZ is not accepting new patients today. Sorry. And you have to call multiple people. It's 100% phone dependent. Gen Z millennials, they will go out of their way and pay to not have to deal with this slow, inefficient face-to-face system. And there is the issue of privacy again that I told you before. Healthcare is always a personal issue. It's a personal matter. Healthcare is a personal matter. Walking into a pharmacy, into a health facility, into a doctor office is not a private thing. It's a public thing. And it can be difficult for a lot of people. A lot of people don't want to walk in these setups, right? A lot of people don't want to do that, right? So because it is difficult and can be difficult, it only makes sense, in my view, that this should always be done online. And I took the example in a prior video. I did a review of specifically focusing on ED for HIMSS, and I did a review about how sometimes ED gets treated in the US, which they have these what they call these low-T centers with, in my view, very condescending or insulting advertising, and they call it a low-T center, and I find the advertising very vulgar and condescending. And imagine yourself walking into that store. It's, in my view, for a lot of Gen Z millennials, it's no fun. It is no fun, and it's not enjoyable. And that's why people want to do this online. These health issues, people want to get treated online. That's why this is a top 10 app on the App Store, because people want to get this treated online. People don't want to deal with this face-to-face. You don't want to go see a secretary and say, oh, I have an appointment for XYZ issue, right? So that's something that is being solved by these apps. Remote healthcare is only logical to me. We live in a customer-centric world. And remote healthcare is logical. And in my view, HIMSS, and I'll conclude with this, the next logical step, even beyond just seeing the doctor, for anything that has to do with health, the next logical step is likely talking to an AI and dealing with an AI and not having to talk about issues that are so personal, not having to talk about these issues with any other human being. I think this is an example where people will want to talk to AIs to deal with this, right? If you're a woman, I'll take another example. If you're a woman, you're losing your hair, you've been proud and happy and taken care of your hair for 35 years, and then you're 38, you're 39, you're finding that you're losing half your hair. Are you really gonna talk to someone about that? No, you wanna talk to an AI. You wanna deal it on your own. This is not a fun thing to talk to other people. And there's specific situations like psychiatry, for example, where people want to talk to other people. But in my view, these are things you don't really necessarily want to talk about to other people. And this is even more true with Gen Z. And Gen Z not liking any face-to-face. So that's the next logical step, and I think HIMSS is well positioned for this. Of course, right now, the market is entirely dismissing this stock. That wouldn't be the first innovation stock, the first stock with a revolutionary value proposition, in my view. That wouldn't be that first stock that we have that is being discounted by the market. And I look forward to tomorrow. And tomorrow evening are the earnings for HIMSS, and I look forward to that. And hopefully, we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen, but we'll see. But I can tell you the narrative, as always for HIMSS, the narrative is going to be marketing spend's too high. That's going to be this short-term narrative, as always. And we'll see how this goes. But anyways, this was not investment advice. This was just entertainment, no investment advice. Appreciate your likes, appreciate your subscribes. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.